welcome back, everyone. I thought maybe a midday surprise encounter would be something you guys would enjoy. I'll still be uploading more encounters later tonight. Just consider this a bonus encounter, I suppose. Well, I hope you all enjoy this one. Thanks for tuning in to listen. I greatly appreciate everyone that's here. Now, let's get into the encounter. Everyone grab a drink, lock your doors and windows, hit the lights, and let's get started. Just refer to me as Anonymous, and as most people that I know, back then, I wasn't the guy, that person who believes or even wants to listen to people's ghost stories or their legends that revolve around tiny, small rural towns throughout the United States. It's common most people make up these types of stories just to scare each other. Some people just like to be scared, and I've never understood that. But to each their own, I suppose. In 2002, I was working construction with my uncle in a rural part of Southwestern Kentucky. That's a good way to start this story. I've spent over 20 years trying to forget about this. This is the only time I've ever talked about it to anyone else, and it'll probably be the only time I speak about it in general. I was 19 at the time. We were doing this job that was forcing me to drive home late at night on empty back roads. That night was the same as any other in my mind, until I reached this old bridge about 10 miles outside of town. Anyone that lives close or around the area where I do, you're going to be familiar with where this is. This bridge had, and still does, have a reputation. Everybody knows the stories. Kids daring each other to stop in the middle of it at night and shut off your vehicle and the headlights. There were tons of rumors of people disappearing, a lot of whispering about some unknown entity watching you from the woods around the bridge. I never really felt any type of way about it, to be honest. To me, it was just an old, rusting, single-lane bridge over a slow-moving creek. Nothing special about it. Definitely nothing worth being afraid of. I was severely wrong about this one. Well, I was headed home, and I came upon the bridge like I always did, my headlights lighting up the entrance. As soon as I started across the bridge, I saw something standing at the other end, right in the middle of the road. It was out of the reach of my headlights, but I could just see a silhouette and a set of eyes. Just a dark shape against the trees on the other side. But as I rolled closer, the shape started to come into focus. The feeling I had when I first saw this thing is something I've never been able to come to terms with. This creature was extremely tall. Its legs were wrong, they were bent, the way a dog's would be, but it was standing upright. This thing seemed to have arms. Its front limbs were hanging down like arms. They hung really low at its sides, long enough that I could make out the curve of what looked like claws at the end of its paws. To clarify, they didn't really look like paws. They reminded me of what a raccoon's hands would look like. Almost like human hands. It was covered in hair so dark that it blended into the night so well that if it weren't for the reflection of my high beams on its eyes, I might not have even seen it at all. I think that's how these dogmen stay so hidden. This thing was black, like pitch black, and it just blended into the night behind it. But bad news for me, I just happened to see it. And even worse, it just happened to see me as well. I just kept my foot hovering over the brake pedal. I didn't want to stop. Every part of me was telling me to turn around, but I was already on the bridge and I didn't have room to turn my truck around. All I could think about is if I even tried to spin around, by the time I could do so, this thing would be on top of me very quickly. And as big as it was, I imagine it could have just ripped the door off of my truck and then it would have me. I would rather take my chances running over this thing than turning around. So I kept creeping forward, and shortly after seeing its full silhouette in my headlights, they shined on its face. I'm trying to think of a way here to describe this thing that would do it justice, so you can clearly picture what I was looking at. This wasn't an animal, and it sure as hell wasn't humankind either. Its head was absolutely humongous, and it was almost identical to the head of a wolf. It had a shorter snout, though, and it was slightly open. I could see its teeth. I couldn't hear anything, but it was moving its mouth almost like it was snapping its jaws for some reason. It was very odd, to say the least. I have no idea what it was doing. It had the typical pointed canine ears standing up on top of its head. Let me try to describe the eyes. They weren't wild, as they weren't panicked like most animals would be if you drive up on them in a vehicle. They were locked onto my truck and me, and it seemed to be calculating or debating on what it was going to do. It was very calm and aware. I locked up my truck and came to a complete stop. For just a couple of seconds, neither of us made any moves. It was like everything was in slow motion. I still don't know what it was doing just standing out there like that, but finally it slowly took a step backwards, then another. It never turned its back on me the whole time that I saw it, and it never broke eye contact. It just melted back into the dark like it was invisible, which, like I told you before, it practically was invisible in the dark. I continued driving ahead extremely cautious because I didn't know if it was just standing off the edge of the road in the dark waiting for me to pull up. As I got close to where it was standing, there was this giant blood spot on the road, and I could see bits of animal fur. It looked like hair from a deer, at least from the distance I was seeing it, so I'm guessing this thing was eating. I suppose that makes sense as to why it was snapping its jaws. Maybe it was chewing. But I would not think something like this would be real. But the fact that it was eating another animal tells me that it is a physical, living creature. I still don't know what I feel about even saying that out loud. When I made it to the blood spot, I floored it and blew off the end of the bridge and nearly lost control of my pickup. I drove with my speedometer completely buried until I saw the lights coming from town. I didn't talk about this. I didn't even tell my uncle. But I started watching the news religiously, listening to the locals. About 3 months after my encounter, a truck driver vanished on that same road. Apparently they found his rig still running, door open, no sign of him anywhere. They never found anything. Needless to say, I don't drive that way anymore. I'll take other roads that circle around that area, even if it takes 20 or 30 minutes longer. I was never even aware of what it was that I encountered until about 5 years ago. I always watched all the shows on TV about people encountering weird cryptids or other unknown creatures, hoping that I would eventually see something that matched the description of what I came across on that bridge. And sure enough, there was this documentary I watched about Dogman. As soon as they said the word Dogman, my whole body was covered in chills, and I knew that's what I had seen. I'm not sure about the others, Bigfoot, Wendigo, the Rake, all that stuff, but I am very sure that Dogman exists. That I can guarantee. As people say all the time, seeing is believing, I guess, and I know exactly what I saw. Thanks for the time and for the opportunity to share. Anonymous. Well, legends, that's going to do it for this midday encounter. I hope everyone's having a great day or night wherever you are out there. I hope all y'all are safe and blessed with nothing but the best. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, don't forget the notification bell so you will be notified of any future uploads. Thank you for listening. Watch over your loved ones. Keep your head on a swivel. And as always, good night.
Whoa.